Good morning, Carl. And back from Recording Studio Oxford, where we last left off, we heard that Buldeo's vile plans um, against both Mowgli and against the kindly old couple who took him in. So now shall we find out how how the story continues? Letting in the Jungle, Part 2. What says he? What says he? What says he? The wolves repeated every few minutes, and Mowgli translated until he came to the witch part of the story, which was a little beyond him. And then he said the man and the woman who had been so kind to him were trapped. Does man trap man? Said Bagheera. So he says, I cannot understand the talk. They are all mad together. What have a Meso and a man to do with me that they should be put in a trap? And what is all this talk about the red flower? I must look into this. Whatever they would do to Mesua, they will not do till Buldeo returns, and so... Mowgli thought very hard, with his fingers playing round the shaft of the skinning knife, while Buldeo and the charcoal burners went off very valiantly in single file. I'll go hot-foot back to the man pack, Mowgli said at last. And those, said Grey Brother, looking hungrily after the brown backs of the charcoal burners. Sing them home, said Mowgli with a grin. I do not wish them to be at village gates till it's dark. Can you hold them? Grey Brother bared his white teeth in contempt. We can head them round and round in circles like tethered goats, if I know man. That I do not need. Sing to them a little, lest they be lonely on the road. And, Grey Brother, the song need not be of the sweetest. Go with them, Bagheera, and help them make the song. When night is shut down, meet me by the village. Great Brother knows the place. There's no light hunting to work from a man cub. When shall I sleep? Said Bagheera, yawning, though his eyes showed that he was delighted by the amusement. Me to sing to naked men, but let us try. He lowered his head so the sound would travel and cried a long, good hunting, a midnight call to the afternoon, which was quite awful enough to begin with. Mowgli heard it rumble and rise and fall and die off in a creepy sort of whine behind him, and laughed to himself as he ran through the jungle. He could see the charcoal burners huddled in a knot, old Buldeo's gun barrel waving like a banana leaf to every point of the compass at once. Then Grey Brother gave a yalla hee, yalla ha call for the buck driving, when the pack drives the Nilgai, the big blue cow before them, and it seemed to come from the very ends of the earth, nearer and nearer and nearer, till in the end a shriek snapped off short. The other three answered, till even Mowgli could have vowed the full pack was in full cry, and then they all broke into a magnificent morning song of the jungle, with every turn and flourish and grace note that a deep-mouthed wolf of the pack knows. This is a rough rendering of the song, but you must imagine what it sounded like when it breaks the afternoon hush of the jungle. One moment past our bodies cast no shadow on the plain. Now clear and black they stride our tractor, and we run home again. In morning hush each rock and bush stands hard and high and raw. Then give the call, good rest all that keep the jungle law. Now horn and pelt our peoples melt, in covert to abide. Now crouched and still, to haven kill, our jungle barons glide. Now stark and plain man's oxen strain to draw the New York plough. Now stripped and dread the dawn is red above the lit Talau. Ho, get to lair, this sun's aflare behind the breathing grass, and crackling through the young bamboo the warning whispers pass. By day made strange the woods we range, with blinking eyes we scan, while down the skies the wild duck cries, the day to man! The dew is dry that drench our hide or wash them bout our way, and while we drank the puddle bank is crisping into clay. The traitor dark gives up each mark of stretched or hooded claw, then hear the call, good rest all that keep the jungle law. But no translation can have the effect of it, or of the yelping scorn the four threw into every word of it, as they heard the trees crash when the men hastily climbed up into the branches, and Buldeo began repeating incantations and charms. Then they lay down and slept, for like all who live by their exertions, they were a methodical cast of mind, and no one can work well without sleep. Meanwhile, the Mowgli was putting miles behind him, 9 to the hour, swinging on and delighted to find himself so fit after all his cramped months among men. The one idea in his mind was to get Meso and her husband out of the trap, whatever it was, for he had a natural mistrust of traps. Later, he promised himself, he would pay his debts to the village at large. It was at midnight when he saw the well-remembered grazing ground, and the dak tree where Grey Brother had waited for him on the morning when he killed Shere Khan. Angry as he was at the whole brood and community of man, something jumped up in his throat and made him catch his breath when he looked at the village roofs. He noticed that everyone had come in from the fields, unusually early, and that, instead of getting to their evening cooking, they gathered about in a crowd around the village tree and chatted and shouted. Men must always be making traps for men, or they are not content, said Mowgli. Last night it was Mowgli, but that night seems many rains ago. Tonight it is Mesua and her man. Tomorrow and for many nights thereafter will be Mowgli's turn again. He crept along outside the wall till he came to Mesua's hut, and looked in through the window into her room. There lay Mesua, gagged and bound hand and foot, breathing hard and groaning. Her husband was tied to the gaily painted bedstead. The door of the hut that opened in the street was shut fast, and 3 or 4 people were sitting with their back to it. Mowgli knew the manners and customs of the villagers very fairly. He argued that so long as they could eat and talk and smoke, they would not do anything else, but as soon as they had been fed, they would begin to be dangerous. Buldeo would be coming in before long, and if his escort had done its duty, Buldeo would have a very interesting tale to tell. So he went in through the window, and stooping over the man and the woman, cut their thongs and pulled out the gags, and looked around the hut for some milk. Mesua was half wild with pain and fear. She had been beaten and stoned all morning, and Mowgli put his hand over her mouth just in time to stop a scream. Her husband was only bewildered and angry, and sat picking dust and things out of his torn beard. I knew he would come, Mesua sobbed at last. Now I know he is my son, and she hugged Mowgli to her heart. Up to that time Mowgli had been perfectly steady, but now he began to tremble all over, and that surprised him immensely. Why are these thongs? Why have they tied thee? He asked after a pause. To be put to the death for making a son of thee. What else? The man said suddenly. Look, I bleed. Mesua said nothing, but it was her wounds that Mowgli looked, and when they heard him grit his teeth, they saw the blood. Whose work is this? Said he. This is the price to pay. The work of all the village. I was too rich. I had too many cattle. Therefore she and I are witches, but we gave thee shelter. I do not understand. Let Mesua tell the tale. I gave thee milk, Nathu. Dost thou remember? Mesua said timidly. Because thou wast my son, whom the tiger took, and because I loved thee very dearly. They said I was thy mother, the mother of a devil, and therefore worthy of death. And what is a devil? Said Mowgli. Death I have seen. The man looked up gloomily, but Mesua laughed. See, she said to her husband, I knew. I said he was no sorcerer. He is my son. My son. Son or sorcerer? What good will that do us? The man answered. We be as dead already. Yonder is the road to the jungle, Mowgli pointed through the window. Your hand and feet are free. Go now. We do not know the jungle, my son, as thou knowest, Mesua began. I do not think I could walk far. And the men and the women will be on our backs and drag us here again, said the husband. Said Mowgli, and they tickled the palm of his hand with the tip of his skinning knife. I have no wish to do harm on anyone in this village, yet. But I do not think they will stay thee. In a little time they will have much else to think upon. Ah, he lifted his head and listened to his shouting and trampling aside. So they have let Buldeo come home at last? He was sent this morning to kill thee, Mesua cried. Didst thou meet him? Yes. I met him. He has a tale to tell, and while he is telling there's time to do much. But first I will learn what they mean. Think where you would go, and tell me when I come back. He bounded through the window and ran along again outside the wall of the village till he came within earshot of the crowd around the peepul tree. Buldeo was lying on the ground, coughing and groaning, and everyone was asking him questions. His hair had fallen about his shoulders, his hands and legs were skinned from climbing up trees, and he could hardly speak, but he felt the importance of his position keenly. From time to time he said something about devils, and singing devils, and magic enchantment, just to give a crowd a taste of what was coming. Then he called for water. Bah, said Mowgli. Chatter, chatter. Talk, talk. Men are blood brothers of the Bandar log. Now I must wash his mouth with water, now I must blow smoke, and when all is done, he still has a story to tell. These are very wise people, men. They will leave no one to guard Mesua till their ears are stuffed with Buldeo's tales, and I grow as lazy as they. He shook himself, and glided back to the hut. Just as out the window he felt a touch on his foot. Mother, said he, for he knew that tongue well, what dost thou do here? I heard my children singing through the woods, and I followed the one I lovest best. Little frog, I have a desire to see that woman who gave thee milk, said Mother Wolf, wool wet with the dew. They have bound and mean to kill her. I've cut those ties, and she goes with a man through the jungle. I also will follow. I am old, but not yet toothless. Mother Wolf reared herself on end and looked through the window into the dark of the hut. In a minute she dropped noiselessly, and all she said, I gave thee thy first milk, but Bagheera speaks truth. Man goes to man at the last. Maybe, said Mowgli, with a very unpleasant look on his face, but tonight I'm very far from that trail. Wait here, but do not let her see. Thou wast never afraid of me, little frog, said Mother Wolf, backing into the high grass and blotting herself out as she knew how. And now, said Mowgli cheerfully as he swung into that again, they are all sitting round Buldeo saying that which did not happen. When his talk is finished, they will assuredly come with the red, with fire, and burn you both. And then? I have spoken to my man, said Mesua. Kanhiwara is 30 miles from here, but Kanhiwara we may find the English. And what pack are they? I said Mowgli. I do not. They are white. And it is said they govern all the land, and they do not suffer people to burn or beat each other without witnesses. If we can get thither tonight, we live, otherwise we die. Live then. No man passes the gates tonight. But what does he do? Mesua's husband was out on his hands and knees digging in the earth in the corner of a hut. It is little money, said Mesua. We can take nothing else. Ah, yes, the stuff that passed from hand to hand and never grows warmer. Do they need it outside this place also? Said Mowgli. The man stared angrily. He is a fool and no devil, he muttered. With the money I can buy a horse. We are too bruised to walk far, and the village will follow us an hour. I say they will not follow till I choose, but a horse is well thought of, for Mesua is tired. Husband stuck up and knotted the last of the rupees into his waistcloth. Mowgli helped Mesua through the window, and the cool night air revived her, but the jungle in the starlight looked very dark and terrible. You know the trail to Kanhiwara? Mowgli whispered. They nodded. Good. Remember now not to be afraid, and there's no need to go quickly. Only there may be some small singing in the jungle behind you and before. Think you we would have risked the night in the jungle through anything less than fear of burning? It's better to be killed by beasts than men, said Mesua's husband. And Mesua looked at old Mowgli and smiled. I say, Mowgli went on, just as though he were Baloo repeating an old jungle law for the 100th time to a foolish club. I say not a tooth in the jungle is bared against you, not a foot in the jungle is lifted against you. Neither man nor beast shall stay till you come within eye-shot of Kanhiwara. There will be a watch about you. He turned to Mesua, saying, He does not believe, but wilt thou believe? Aye, surely, my son, man, ghost, or wolf of the jungle, I believe. He will be afraid when he hears my people singing. Thou wilt know and understand. Go now, and shut slowly, for there's no need of any haste. The gates are shut. Mesua flung herself sobbing at Mowgli's feet, but he lifted her very quickly with a shiver. Then she hung about his neck and called him every name of blessing she could think of, but her husband looked enviously across the field and said, If we reach Kanhiwara, and I get the ear of the English, I will bring such a lawsuit against the Brahmin and old Buldeo and the others as shall eat the village to the bone. They shall pay me twice over my crops untilled and my buffaloes unfed. I will have a great justice. Mowgli laughed. I do not know what justice is, but come the next rains, and see what is left. They went off to the jungle, and Mother Wolf leapt from a place of hiding. Follow, said Mowgli, and look to it that all the jungle knows these two are safe. Give tongue a little, I would call Bagheera. The long, low howl rose and fell, and Mowgli saw Mesua's husband flinch and turn half-minded to go back to the hut. Go on, Mowgli called cheerfully. I said there may be singing. That call will follow up to Kanhiwara. It is the favor of the jungle. Mesua urged her husband forward, and the darkness shut down on them, and Mother Wolf, as Bagheera rose up almost under Mowgli's feet, trembling with delight of the night that drives the jungle people wild. I am ashamed of thy brethren, he said, purring. What? Did they not sing sweetly to Buldeo? Said Mowgli. Too well, too well. They made even me forget my pride, and by the broken lock that freed me, I went singing through the jungle as though I were out wooing in the spring. Didst thou not hear us? I had other game afoot. Ask Buldeo if you like. I like the song. But where are the four? I do not wish one of the man-pack to leave the gates tonight. One need of the four, then, said Bagheera, shifting from foot to foot, his eyes ablaze and purring louder than ever. I can hold him, little brother. Is it killing at last? The singing and the sight of men climbing the trees have made me very ready. Who is man that we should care for him? The naked brown digger, the hairless and toothless, the eater of the earth? I have followed him all day, at noon, in the white sunlight. I have herded him as the wolves herd buck. I am Bagheera, Bagheera, Bagheera. As I danced with my shadow, so I danced with those men. Look! The great panther leapt as a kitten leaps at a dead leaf whirling overhead, and struck left and right into the empty air that sang under the strokes, landed noiselessly, and leapt again and again, while the half-purr, half-growl gathered head as steam rumbles in a boiler. I am Bagheera in the jungle, in the night, and my strength is in me. Who shall stay my stroke? Man cub, with the blow of my paw I could beat thy head flat as a dead frog in summer. Strike then, said Mowgli in the dialect of the village, not the talk of the jungle, and the human words brought Bagheera to full stop, flung back on haunches that quivered under, his head just at the level of Mowgli's. Once more Mowgli stared, as he had stared at the rebellious cubs, full into the beryl green eyes, till the red glare behind that green went out like the light of a lighthouse shut off 20 miles across the sea, till the eyes dropped and the big head with them dropped lower and lower, and the red rasp of the tongue grated on Mowgli's instep. Brother, 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 the boy whispered, stroking steadily and lightly from the neck along the heaving back. Be still, be still. It is the fault of the night, and no fault of thine. It was the smells of the night, said Bagheera penitently. This air cries aloud to me, but how dost thou know? Of course the air around an Indian village is full of all kinds of smells, and to any creature who does nearly all his thinking through his nose, smells are as maddening as music and drugs are to human beings. Mowgli gentled the panther for a few minutes, and he lay down like a cat before fire, his paws tucked on his breast, and his eyes half shut. Thou art of the jungle, and not of the jungle, he said at last, and I am only a black panther, but I love thee, little brother. They are very long at their talk under the tree, Mowgli said, without noticing the last sentence. Buldeo must have told many tales. They should come in soon to drag the woman and her man out of the trap and put them into the red flower. They will find that trap sprung. Ho, ho. Nay, listen, said Bagheera. The fever's out of my blood now. Let them find me here. Few would leave their houses after meeting me. It is not the first time I have been in a cage, and I do not think they will tie me with cords. Be wise then, said Mowgli, laughing, for he was beginning to feel as reckless as the panther who glided into the hut. Pah! Bagheera grunted. This place is rank with man. But here is just such a bed as they gave me to lie on upon in the king's cage of Zode-Pore. Now I lie down. Mowgli heard the strings of the cot crack under the great brute's weight. By the broken lock that freed me, they will think they have caught big game. Come and sit beside me, little brother. We will give them a good hunting together. No, I have another thought in my stomach. The man-pack shall not know what a share I have in the sport. Make thine own hunt. I do not wish them to see me. Be it so, said Bagheera. Ah, now they come. The conference under the peepul tree had been growing noisier and noisier at the far end of the village. It broke in wild yells, and rushed up the street of men and women waving clubs and bamboos and sickles and knives. Buldeo and the Brahmin were at the head of it, but the mob was close at their heels, and they cried, The witch and the wizard! Let us see if hot coins will make them confess. Burn the hut over their heads. We will teach them to shelter wolf devils. Nay, beat them first. Torches, more torches. Buldeo, heat the gun barrels. And here we reaching the climax of the tale. Buldeo has a bad surprise waiting for him, but I think one that he justly deserves, considering what he's tried to do to Mowgli and what he tried to do to Meso and her man, who did nothing more than show kindness. It's a sad thing in this world that very often people, and very often groups of people, will be cruel and hateful to those who show kindness. But every so often groups like that run into someone like Mowgli. Until tomorrow, my darling, love you to pieces as always.